Healthy mindset that will give you strength and wisdom. The Welcoming Committee is there waiting for you. See you soon.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live on radio, podcast, video stream, where we're going to look at the news together like we do daily, challenging the toxic groupthink of the old 20th century media with ideas from the 21st century media and beyond. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here, as always, to do, because nobody else tackles these issues like this. That's why we're here. We create media that we wish was already out there, and we will do so until so many other outlets are taking on this same framework of analysis, which is that we cannot rely on the old outdated models of news where you just have three outlets, and now we are supposed to have three social media platforms, and Google's over there messing with the search results and suggestions, manipulating people's perceptions in a very untoward way. And we can't just go along with that forever and expect anything good to come of that. We've got to push back. We've got to push back with ideas, with culture, with renaissance of technology. And it's something that, you know, when you look at what's on tap today, all I hear is hate, division, and violence. That's all I hear from these people. That's all I hear. They're trying to act like they are the, arbiters of justice. But in reality, they just want control. They want hate to spread. They want division. And all of us can be tempted to make bad choices. It's not like one ideology has a monopoly on that. But the point is that you have to have some kind of self-awareness to be aware of what, your blind spots are, and where your own ability to have hubris or, blind spots that could give you incorrect information. And I don't see that from the TV media today. I don't see that. What I see is a lot of people who want to divide us and tell us pick a tribal team and go to war. And going to war is not going to solve the problems that we all want solved. We want safer communities, right? We want prosperity. We want health. And fighting over which team is the villain and which team is the perpetual victim won't provide solutions for any of those things. It just won't. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about in this time together, is that we can chart out a new conversation where we don't have to be stuck on that old framework of, hate, divide, tribal, division, and so on and so forth. We have had a number of guests on who provide the future of what we can all grasp if we work together. We had Dr. Thomas Seyfried on, who is the Galileo of the metabolic theory of cancer, which, if we can get him more attention and the scientists like him doing the work, could usher in a huge paradigm shift that could be a tremendous blessing for billions of people who are worried about a disease like that. Or maybe they know someone who's had the disease and they don't know what to do. And they've relied on the government and the TV for so long to tell us, okay, tell us what we had to do. Okay, support government, and they're going to do a war on cancer. And it doesn't work. And so that's why we have to be able to look for the Galileos of our time, look for the people putting their skin in the game to do radical innovations in health, nutrition. I keep focusing on those things because those are foundational things. Government tells you, look, you've got to go to us for your energy. We'll provide you your clean energy. You've got to go to the government for your health. We'll provide you government-provided health care or so forth. You've got to go to us for understanding how to take care of the environment. But every one of those things that they say they're the essential monopoly for, they have failed. And all their crony media outlets and all their crony big business allies can't make that fact go away. So I want to talk first about this thread that was on Twitter. I don't know if you've heard of it, by Martyr Made. There's a guy named Daryl Cooper, who I actually have enjoyed some of his podcasts into history. I listened to a podcast recently by him talking about the history of human sacrifice and the way humans relate to one another. But he recently had a Twitter thread that went viral, to say the least. And I saw it before it got kind of accelerated, but it got so accelerated that even Donald Trump was referencing the Twitter thread in his recent speech at CPAC. But I wanted to read from this thread because it has a lot of good points about where we are culturally and politically. Because I think he understands where the mindset is for a lot of people who have an affinity for Donald Trump. And so here's what he said. He says, I think I've had discussions with enough boomer tier Trump supporters who believe the 2020 election was fraudulent to extract a general theory about their perspective. It is also the perspective of most of the people at the Capitol on January 6th and probably even Trump himself. Most believe some or all of the theories involving midnight ballots, voting machines, etc. But what you find when you talk to them is that while they'll defend those positions with information they got from Hannity or Breitbart or whatever, they're not particularly attached to them. Here are the facts, actual confirmed facts that shape their perspective. 1. The FBI, etc., spied on the 2016 Trump campaign using evidence manufactured by the Clinton campaign. We now know that all involved knew it was fake from day one. See Brennan's July 2016 memo, etc. 3, it says these are the Tea Party people, the types who give their kids a pocket constitution for their birthday and have founding fathers memes in their bios. The intel community spying on a presidential campaign using fake evidence, including forged documents, is a big deal to them. Everyone involved lied about their involvement as long as they could. We only learned the DNC paid for the manufactured evidence because of a court order. Comey denied on TV knowing the DNC paid for it, when we have emails from a year earlier proving that he knew. This was true with everyone from CIA Director Brennan and Adam Schiff, who were on TV saying they'd seen clear evidence of collusion with Russia while admitting under oath behind closed doors that they hadn't, all the way down the line. In the end, we learned that it was all fake. At first, many Trump people were worried there must be some collusion because every media and intel agency wouldn't make it up out of nothing. When it was clear that they had made it up, people expected a reckoning and shed many illusions about their government when it did not happen. We know as fact that A, the Steele dossier was the sole evidence used to justify spying on the Trump campaign. B, the FBI knew the Steele dossier was a DNC op. C, Steele's source told the FBI the information was unserious. D, they did not inform the court of any of this and kept spying. Trump supporters know the collusion case front and back. They went from worrying the collusion must be real to suspecting it might be fake to realizing it was a scam, then watched as every institutions, agencies, the press, Congress, academia gaslit them for another year. Worse, collusion was used to scare people away from working in the administration. They knew their entire lives would be investigated. Many quit because they were being bankrupted by legal fees. The DOJ, press, and government destroyed lives and actively subverted an elected administration. This is where people whose political identity was largely defined by a naive belief in what they learned in civics class began to see the outline of a regime that crossed all institutional boundaries because it had stepped out of the shadows to unite against an interloper. GOP propaganda still has many of them thinking in terms of partisan binaries, but a lot of Trump supporters see that the regime is not partisan. They all know that the same institutions would have taken opposite sides if it was Tulsi Gabbard versus Jeb Bush election. It's hard to describe to people on the left who are used to thinking of government as a conspiracy, Watergate, COINTELPRO, WMD, etc., how shocking and disillusioning this was for people who encourage their sons to enlist in the army and hate people who don't stand for the anthem. They could have managed the shock if it only involved the government, but the behavior of the corporate press is really what radicalized them. They hate journalists more than they hate any politician or government official because they feel most betrayed by them. The idea that the press is driven by ratings and sensationalism became untenable. If that were true, they'd be all over the Epstein story. The corporate press is the propaganda arm of the regime they now see in outline. Nothing anyone says will ever make them unsee that, period. This is profoundly disorienting. Many of them don't know for certain whether ballots were faked in November 2020, but they know for absolute certain that the press, the FBI, etc. would lie to them if there was. They have every reason to believe that, and it's probably true. They watch the press behave like animals for 4 years. Tens of millions of people will always see Kavanaugh as a gang rapist based on nothing because of CNN. And CNN seems proud of that. They led a lynch mob against a high school kid. They cheered on a summer of riots. They always claimed the media had liberal bias, fine, whatever. They still thought the press would admit truth if they were cornered. Now they don't. It's a different thing to watch them invent stories whole cloth in order to destroy regular lives and spark mass violence. Time magazine told us during the 2020 riots, there were weekly conference calls involving, among others, leaders of the protests, the local officials who refused to stop them, and media people who framed them for political effect. In Ukraine, we call that a color revolution. Throughout the summer, Democrat governors took advantage of COVID to change voting procedures. It wasn't just the mail-ins, they lowered signature matching standards, etc. After the collusion scam, the fake impeachment, Trump people expected shenanigans by now. Regarding the fake impeachment, we now know that Trump's request for Ukraine to cooperate with the DOJ regarding Biden's money activities in Ukraine was in support of an active investigation being pursued by the FBI and Ukraine AG at the time, and so a completely legitimate request. Then you get to the Hunter laptop scandal. Big Tech ran a full-on censorship campaign against a major newspaper to protect a political candidate, period. Everyone knows it. All of the tech companies now admit it was a, quote, mistake. But you know, the election's over, so who cares? It goes without saying, but if the New York Times had Don Jr.'s laptop full of pics of him smoking crack and engaging in group sex, lots of lurid family drama, emails describing direct corruption and backed up by the CEO of the company they were using, the New York Times wouldn't have been banned. Think back. Stories about Trump being urinated on by Russian prostitutes and blackmailed by Putin were promoted as fact, and the only evidence was a document paid for by his opposition and disavowed by its source. The New York Post was banned for reporting on true information. The reaction of Trump people to all of this was not no fair. That's how they felt about Romney's binders full of women in 2012. This is different. Now they see correctly that every institution is captured by people who will use any means to exclude them from the political process. And yet they showed up in record numbers to vote. He got 13 million more votes than in 2016, 10 million more than Clinton got. As election night dragged on, they allowed themselves some hope. But when the 4 critical swing states, and only those states, went dark at midnight, they knew. Over the ensuing weeks, they got shuffled around by grifters and media scam artists, selling them conspiracy theories. They latched on to one, then another, increasingly absurd theory as they tried to put a concrete name on something very real. Media and tech did everything to make things worse. Everything about the election was strange. The changes in procedure, the unprecedented mail-in voting, the delays, etc. But rather than admit and make everything transparent, they banned discussion of it, even in direct messages. Everyone knows that. Just as Don Jr.'s laptop would have been the story of the century if everything about the election dispute was the same, except the parties were reversed, suspicions about the outcome would have been taken very seriously. See 2016 election for proof. Even the court's refusal of the case gets nowhere with them because of how the opposition embraced mass political violence. They'll say with good reason, what judge will stick his neck out for Trump knowing he'll be destroyed in the media as a violent mob burns down his house? It's a fact. According to Time magazine, that mass riots were planned in cities across the country if Trump won. Sure, they were protests, but they were planned by the same people as during the summer. And everyone knows what it would have meant. Judges have families too. Forget the ballot conspiracies. It's a fact that governors used COVID to unconstitutionally alter election procedures. The Constitution states that only legislatures can do so to help Biden to make up for a massive enthusiasm gap by gaming the mail-in ballot system. They knew it was unconstitutional. It's right there in plain English. But they knew the cases wouldn't see court until after the election. And what judge will toss millions of ballots because a governor broke the rules? The threat of mass riots wasn't implied. It was direct. The entrenched bureaucracy and security state subverted Trump from day one because the press is part of the operation. Election rules were changed. Big tech censors opposition. Political violence is legitimized and encouraged. And Trump is banned from social media. They were led down some rabbit holes, but they are absolutely right that their government is monopolized by a regime that believes they are beneath representation and will observe no limits to keep them getting it. Trump fans should be happy he lost. It might have kept him alive. And that's from a commenter, Martyrmade. Daryl Cooper is the name of the podcaster. But very, very great observations made there. Let's take a quick break and return in just a moment with more news and commentary. I'm David Gronowski. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Back in a moment. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney, spokeswoman.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. We're live on radio. And I want to just follow up with that last thread that I read for those about just summarizing what a lot of Trump supporters are feeling. And I understand that they have been going through some hard reality readjustments here as they recognize that the media and so many of the institutions they thought they could trust in are working hand in hand to strip them of having any representation in their form of governance. And people naively believed in the conservative movements. Remember, they hissed and booed at Ron Paul when he said, hey, watch out for the Patriot Act. Watch out for suspension of habeas corpus. Watch out for radicalizing, this need to have surveillance of every American for every suspicious person that, could be a terrorist and all this stuff. He challenged the FBI. He challenged the CIA. He challenged that stuff, and he got booed and hissed at. Fox News did everything they could to bury his voice. Talk radio did everything they could to ignore him and laugh at him. And now it's too late because all those same institutions that they thought would only predate after, radical Islamists, well, it turned out that was a selling point that was not actually what the reality of the product would be. Turned out they were actually just going to use those same machines of lawless usurpation of liberty to anybody and everybody that they needed to justify bigger and bigger budgets, bigger and bigger, levels of power. And so it's a hard reckoning for people who believe in the civics classes that they took, and they believe that their country is the freest country in the world, and it doesn't look like it now. And maybe it hasn't been as free as we've thought for a long while. And yet it feels like people have to do something very urgent right now in terms of waking people up to how important it is to preserve liberties before they're completely gone for good. That liberty has to be fought for. It has to be defended. It has to be articulated. And it starts with culture. If your culture is addicted to relying on the government to educate your kids, for example, then you're going to have a hard time getting your culture in the right direction in any time soon. We'll take a break and return. Up next, we'll hear from Colonel Doug Macgregor, who served in the Pentagon under the Trump administration and echoed many of the same critiques that Trump echoed about perpetual war. He's got a new column challenging what's behind this wokeism in the military at the top levels of the Pentagon. Back in a moment. Our content is on fire for the truth.
Now, there's a new voice you can trust.
We, unlike any other program out there in the market today, are not afraid to tackle issues like science and nutrition and things like how to get out of debt, how to get your kids out of failing government schools.
Compelling information that affects your
The
life.
problems we have, they're not that hard to solve. You just got to learn to roll up your sleeves and solve them ourselves.
Weekday afternoons, 4 to 6. It's A Neighbor's Choice with David Gronowski.
News Talk 1040
You
WHBO.
don't need a rocket scientist to do it.
For
President Biden in Philadelphia says the assault on free and fair elections is a real threat. The president pushing back on restrictive voting laws passed by numerous states and based on the former president's false claims of voter fraud and his failed legal efforts to overturn the election after he lost.
No other election has ever been held under such scrutiny and such high standards. The big lie is just that, a big lie.
The president called on Congress to pass federal voting rights protections. President Biden nominating former Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona to serve as ambassador to Turkey. The Republican supported Biden's election and said in a statement that he's grateful for the opportunity to serve. Police in Detroit say they've identified a potential suspect from the early morning shooting outside a banquet hall, killing one and injuring 5 others. Police say the investigation shows the suspect targeted the victims. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. We're live on FM, AM, podcast, video stream. And we're joined now by a guest who was he served at the tail end of the Trump administration, Colonel Doug Macgregor. How you doing?
Great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, you've got a new piece out in the American Conservative as of today called The Danger of Wokeness in Uniform. And you talk about how it's the surrender to leftist ideology among military leaders endangers all Americans. Now, some people just say, well, it's just they recognized who's in power right now, and they're just signaling what they need to signal to get, power politically, or maybe when they retire, they want to get a good job in some woke corporation, so they're just trying to mouth the flavor of the month rhetoric. Is that something that you think is the case behind this overt Pentagon signaling towards critical theory, or do they actually believe in some of this stuff?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult for us to get into the minds of these people that are 3 and 4 stars in the armed forces and know exactly what they think. But based upon my service, I found that most of them, for most of the time, didn't believe in very much of anything. And they essentially blew with the wind. And in normal times, that probably wouldn't be a big issue, because when we used to go back and forth between Democratic and Republican administrations, we didn't have this profound difference. But the left-right paradigm is just about destroyed, and the left is no longer, in my judgment, even the Democratic Party. The left has become something else, far more Marxist, and ideologically committed to remaking the United States into something that it isn't. And that's the problem in the military, because if you want to control the society, you want to reshape the society, what do? Well, you go after the military and the police. You transform them into instruments for your use to change society. And I'm afraid that's what's happening, and it needs to stop, because that's not why we maintain the armed forces. It never has been. And it's out of control.
Yeah. So when you see that when you say that it's a danger, what do you think is the biggest danger for implementing this new wokeness in the Pentagon? What is the biggest concern you have with this?
Well, in the near term, you're cultivating divisiveness and hatred. You're sharpening divisions that most of us who served over the last 30 years 40 years have tried very hard to overcome. In other words, you are exacerbating tensions, and there are always some tensions, no matter how hard you try, between various groups of people. But the military was remarkably successful at bridging those gaps, if you will, and forging unity and cohesion. to the point where you're not really checking to see whose hand reaches out to help you. You're just grateful for it, regardless of whether it's brown, black, white, or whatever.
Right.
Well, that's changing, and that's the first problem. In other words, you're rendering the military potentially incapable of fighting effectively. And that's the number one near-term concern. Second part of it is that as you begin to populate the senior ranks with ideological followers and co-conspirators, and then you build an organization that you can use against your political opponents. We've already seen a lot of evidence for the readiness of the left in power to do whatever it can to stay permanently in power, which means disrupt voting patterns, disrupt laws, abandon laws, change laws, and effectively suspend the rule of law in most of our big cities. All of those things combine to render your military establishment either in the short term ineffective or over in the long term potential enemy of the population they're supposed to protect.
Right. Yeah. It seems like it's a recipe for division and conflict. Now, some people have said, well, it's going to be very effective for the Pentagon to get people into their ranks that are really excited about implementing critical theory, because if they want to wage a domestic war on terror against, radicals who you want to end the wars or whatever, maybe a radical who's against NAFTA or something. That would be a useful ideology to fill the ranks of the military with. Do you see that as a possible motive for this new rhetoric coming out increasingly?
Well, certainly you want senior officers that are going to unquestioningly obey and execute your policies, regardless of how destructive or stupid they may be. This is not a new phenomenon, but this is a very dangerous one now, because we've moved past all the usual dumb policies that we've had to struggle with for years under the rubric of social engineering. Now we're dealing with something that is decidedly anti-Western, anti-white, obviously anti-Christian. I mean, I quoted a sailor who voiced this opinion at Walter Reed Army Hospital, saying if you're white, straight, and male, especially if you're Christian, the armed forces don't want you. I mean, that's a kind of scary thought, but that seems to be the attitude that people are encountering, and that means that people who are straight, white, male, and potentially Christian are going to leave. Right. You're not going to stay inside an organization that is overtly hostile to you, which means that your senior ranks are populated by all the others. Right. That, I think, is what the left would like.
Yeah, in your article at theamericanconservative.com, you talk about a guy named Bishop Garrison, who has become kind of the figurehead for the Biden administration to fight the alleged extremism in the military, you say. He subscribes to the 1619 Project. So what's his plan? What is he doing to make the military look like the 1619 Project?
Well, if you identify a certain group of people, which is what effectively is happening right now, as a potential enemy, and we've created this boogeyman called white supremacy, which is all but dead to anybody inside the armed forces and across the United States. There's much evidence for it. When you do that, a couple of things happen. First of all, you destroy the cohesion, the discipline, the morale, because more than half of your forces consist of, for the most part, straight white males, many of whom, if not most, are Christians, if not religiously, then probably culturally. So that's one problem. The other aspect of this whole thing is that you make it plausible, legal, legitimate to eliminate people that fall into that category in favor of people that don't fall into that category. In other words, you throw merit, which is always weak, unfortunately, in any of these settings, completely out the window in favor of, well, you're not white, and you're not male, or you're not straight, or you're not a Christian, or any of those mixes, and we're going to push you forward. And we're going to systematically eliminate everyone who doesn't fall into the category we would like. And, when that begins and you have people in charge that support that, sponsor it, and back it, you're going to have trouble, because you're going to create a force against you. In other words, every time you get some radical on one side of the spectrum politically, you get another radical at the other end. And that's really what I was trying to warn people about, that, the force creates its opposite. In other words, extremism creates extremism in opposition. Mm-hmm. We ought to be concerned about that. And that force that's in opposition will be American nationalism. You're not going to convince most of the people that have volunteered to join the military, volunteered to put their lives on the line, not to believe in their country, to cast aside the American flag, to dismiss out of hand the traditions of the United States Armed Forces over the last 200 years. It's not going to happen. And you're going to have a heck of a mess on your hands. You're going to have conflict on your hands.
Right. Yeah, it seems like they're just doing whatever they can to sow chaos. I don't understand how that makes America a safer place. If that's your job, is to protect this country, how is getting people to be suspicious of one another going to create a very cohesive and strong national defense? I don't understand their logic in this, but maybe they don't really have much logic in this, or maybe they have some other idea.
But I don't think we're going to get a good explanation out of the Biden administration. They're simply going to say, we're correct, we're right, and we're morally righteous, and everyone who disagrees with us is not.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is historically the standard position of the Communist Party, of any Marxist organization, because the people on the far left are absolutely convinced that they've cornered the market on truth, justice, and morality. That means that anyone who challenges them is the enemy, and they believe that the enemy deserves whatever they decide to give the enemy, which is pretty terrible. I mean, that's what I pointed out, or tried to point out in the article. We've been down these roads before, and this sort of thing starts off being benign as a pursuit of social justice, in pursuit of impossible equality, not just equality before the law, but forcibly making people more equal than others, which is always disastrous. All of this happened between 1917 and 1920, 21, 22 in Russia, and then set the stage for the murder of tens of millions of human beings inside the Soviet Union. More people died than we can even begin to imagine. Certainly at least 20, 25 million long before the Second World War ever broke out. And we now know that they lost twice what they admitted to. But you breed internal opposition, and that in turn creates conflict that tears apart the society. That's what we don't want.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, where we're headed unless something is done to arrest these radical policies.
But at the same time, I don't know if people are really buying these ideologies, as strongly as it looks like. The TV media ratings are just tanking left and right. They said the Atlantic magazine is just falling apart. Nobody's reading it anymore after Trump left. You had 40% of Hispanics voted for Trump. You had I don't remember what it was for the African American. It was a very largest group of African Americans voted for Republicans since half a century or so for Trump. So it doesn't seem like this doubling down on critical theory is having much sway for a lot of people, except for the white liberal set. They're the ones that I want to read this quote here because I want to push back a little bit on what you said. You said it's Marxist, but is it really Marxist, or is it more of a corporatist, fascist type thing? Because I'm looking at this quote from Charlie Munger from Berkshire, and he says, I don't want all of the Chinese system, but certainly I would like to have the financial part of it in my own country. He says that China was right to clip Jack Ma's wings by taking him away for a while and putting him in a little timeout corner. So sounds like corporate fascist to me. Now, maybe they're using some Marxist rhetoric for the kids, but it sounds like that's really just a useful ploy for corporate fascists. These big billionaires seem to be the ones that want to, they use Marxist rhetoric to sell the same old corporatism where they're making billions and everybody else gets scraps. Is that what you see here?
Well, initially, that's what Lenin did, and he managed to acquire substantial support from the Russian private sector, from people of wealth, people that had property. But once he was in power, he turned military and police against them. And we estimate that perhaps 12% of the male population in Russia at the time was really supportive of what Lenin wanted to do. But once you have a monopoly over the means of violence, once you control the military and police, you wield enormous power. And I think what the people that we're dealing with are inspired by has nothing to do with fascism, has everything to do with communism. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to come to terms with that. You're not dealing with nationalism, which is at the heart of fascism. Mm-hmm. Fascism is about national unity, and that takes nationalism. And nationalism emerged in the interwar period as the antidote to communism, which threatened everyone in the West. We're dealing today with communism, not fascism. So whatever is said, the long-term goals of Marxism or communism, state socialism, whatever you want to call it, remain unchanged. That is, to expunge national identity, to destroy history, to revise it, rewrite it, create a new narrative, and then compel everyone to accept it. And over time, make everyone dependent upon the government, which effectively makes everyone ultimately the employee or the slave of the government. So these are stages of development. We're just at the beginning of this thing, and we should be very concerned about what's happening.
Do you see
and understand the true nature of the threat, which is metastasizing now in the military establishment.
Now, this also connects a little bit, it seems like, to the U.S. Capitol Police, that they've been expanding them around the country. And it says, there's an article in the Populist Press says the U.S. Capitol Police will use surveillance equipment provided by the U.S. Army to monitor Americans as part of a massive effort to improve security and transform the Capitol Police Force into an intelligence-based protective agency following the January 6th riot in D.C. Is that going to be more federalization or nationalization of the police?
Of course, and at the same time, remember, all of these things are directed against this core population of Americans, the people that don't call themselves I'm something else and then American. They're not hybrids. They just refer to themselves as quote-unquote Americans. That's the enemy, because those people are American nationalists. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what's happening. The other part that nobody's paying attention to, but which is enormous, is the open border to the south and the millions that are pouring into our country about whom we know nothing. Much of it involves criminality, drugs, sexual slavery. We can go down the list. But the point is that we had this tidal wave of criminality coming up from Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. And the Capitol Hill police are being directed to do what? Monitor you? Monitor me? We're the enemy? It's incomprehensible. It doesn't make any sense. Right. But you have to understand who these people are, who inspires them, what is their inspiration. Their inspiration is communism. And we need to start calling it what it is.
Well, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, I really appreciate you coming on the program, and I want people to follow your columns at theamericanconservative.com, and we'll continue looking for more analysis on foreign affairs in the months and years to come from you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. FinTechMortgageAssociation.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
In other news, Bill Gates is, quote, on verge of tears at Sun Valley as he opened up about divorce from Melinda. His big regret, seeking marriage advice from Jeffrey Epstein during dozens of meetings at Jeff's Manhattan townhouse, recorded on Jeff's secret candid camera. That's from the Daily Mail. An info archive says Bill Gates asked for marriage advice from Jeffrey Epstein after his 2008 conviction for child trafficking. Remember that. And that's the guy that these garbage media outlets like NBC, these trash rags, these wannabe Pravda outlets paraded around every day. Hello, Bill. What should we do? Should we stay locked down and put masks on our kids' face for another year? And he said, well, yes, why certainly. This is Bill Gates, the guy who's getting marriage advice, relationship advice from a guy after he's convicted of what he was doing to this international trafficking ring that Bill Barr, certainly he was really on that case, wasn't he? Bill Barr. Yeah. Come on. Give me a break. Just like he was on the case of all that spying that was going on in the Trump administration. Remember, he put Durham, and even for a moment I thought, who knows, maybe Durham will do something, but nope. Nope. Not happening, you see? Because the swamp protects themselves. They take care of their own, and you're not their own. They don't care about your liberties. That's why people are sitting in solitary confinement for mild trespassing, some of them, for months after the January 6th deal. Meanwhile, all the people who were doing violent, aggressive things in protest to the Trump inauguration in 2016, none of them got charged. They all got let go. They got let off. It's a crooked game they're running. And you're the product. You're not the client. You're not the customer. The customer are the special interests that make money off of keeping people, divided and hating each other and surveilled like cattle. Jack Posobiec, who is a journalist at Human Events, says the Biden administration is now planning to release a list of conservative social media influencers that were followed by January 6 defendants that questioned the integrity of the 2020 election. The list also includes members of Congress, per White House official. So meanwhile, as ongoing investigations take place in Arizona, and now looking at Fulton County, Georgia, looking at and soon be investigating the count, I guess, in Pennsylvania. No, you're not allowed to challenge the election because we're going to put out an enemies list if you were a social media influencer that some of the January 6th defendants were following. There's people have no, empathy. They're just completely consumed with hate and viciousness and authoritarianism. And that's a question I have for you. You heard what Colonel Doug Macgregor, who was a senior advisor for the Secretary of Defense under Trump, you heard what he had to say in the last segment with me. He believes that what's moving things forward is communism. Is that, I mean, do you believe that's what's really moving things forward? Are we headed towards communism? I happen to believe a little bit different. I believe that they're using Marxist rhetoric because it sells emotionally well to disaffected young people, listless, rich, white liberals, people who are frustrated in a general sense with the corruption they see all around them. So they sell them Marxist rhetoric with some Marxist scraps, but at the same time, it's going to be managed by state corporate interests. You know, I see that as what's driving it. I think Colonel McGregor thinks, no, the Bezoses, the Zuckerbergs, the people like Charlie Munger and those folks that are beneficiaries of this corporatist machine and finance so much of these left-wing movements and nonprofits and color revolution type groups, that they're actually being played, that the radicals are really going to drive the narrative and grab it and throw the billionaires and, you know, destroy them eventually. I don't know. I think that, to me, what I see is I see the McWoke people as useful idiots that are not really driving the story. And it's ultimately these giant corporations that have consolidated so much power using big government interference, and they're the ones really setting the tone. And they're pulling around these McWoke little Foot Clan soldiers from Ninja Turtles, these Antifa people and stuff. They're just throwing them around like a little, like a little useful idiot. They don't really care about their ideology. And the people who are being useful idiots are not self-aware enough to understand their role. They're just there to take a paycheck and go back and play Xbox or whatever. Meanwhile, real people are suffering. Real people need work. Real people need savings. Real people need hope. And we're going to provide the evidence of those things. We're going to provide evidence of hope, evidence of faith, evidence of love in the stories that we highlight on this show. That's what we are investigating. That's what we like to highlight and showcase, guided by anthropology, guided by a study of history, guided by the personhood revolution of Jesus. That's what we are not afraid to talk about. We will talk about it because it's the biggest story of our time. It's what McWokeism is imitating. And we've got the number because we understand it. We understand, if you understand the big picture, you can examine the small, minuscule things here and there a lot easier. You know, it's just like they covered up that COVID leak from Wuhan, and we stayed on that story, even when all the liars, the corporate fascists and social media were censoring that story and blacking it out and calling people racist for even daring to say that. And now a new political Harvard study, and Zero Hedge finds that a majority of Americans now believe COVID was leaked from the Wuhan lab, which underscores the danger of empowering fake fact checkers, media outlets in Silicon Valley to censor information. They were totally dead wrong. 52% of Americans believe the lab leak hypothesis, including 59% of Republicans and 52% of Democrats. It should be a lot higher, but I guess that's what we're dealing with. By contrast, in March 2020, just 29% of Americans accepted the lab leak. Now, how many people were hurt because of that garbage misinformation campaign? You see? But it's okay. The truth will win. We just got to fight for it. You got to be bold for it. We've got to build the foundations of wealth to sustain the truth generationally. So important. And we have to protect culture. Don't let them attack math. If we don't have math, we're not going to have any roads or bridges or anything. We'll take a quick break and return for hour 2 with Peter Quinones and many other news headlines. Stay with us. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com if you have a comment or question, guest suggestion. hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.
Home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. The fight for the right to vote center stage in Philadelphia today. The president pushing back on false claims the election was stolen.
President Biden Tuesday in Philadelphia said no election before 2020 had ever been held under such scrutiny and high standards. In remarks about voting rights, Mr. Biden did not mention his predecessor by name, but he made it clear how he felt about former President Donald Trump's continued false claims about the election.
In America, if you lose, you accept the results. You follow the Constitution. You try again. You don't call facts fake.
President Biden went on to criticize Trump, saying what he did after the election was not statesmanship, but selfishness. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
Texas Democrats are in Washington, D.C. after walking out of a special session aimed at taking up a state's voting rights bill. The governor now vowing to have members arrested once they return. Coronavirus cases on the rise again in the majority of states as the Delta variant spreads. Chicago now asking unvaccinated people from Missouri and Arkansas to test or quarantine for COVID-19 when they arrive. Hospitalizations are also up in both states. Republican Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri says he's not for mandatory vaccinations, but he's urging people to get protected.
You can't just expect that if everybody else is going to get the vaccine and somehow that's going to protect you. That actually might be the case, but we're at a critical moment here where the way to stop this is to be sure it has nowhere that it can continue to spread to other people.
The CDC shows on average states with lower vaccination rates have a weekly case rate that's 3 times higher than states where more than half of the population is fully vaccinated. Authorities in Central California investigating a small plane crash that hit a house this afternoon. It happened shortly after takeoff from Monterey Regional Airport. You're listening to ABC News.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 877-26-BIBLE. That's 877-26-BIBLE. 877-26-BIBLE.
Dozens of Colombian nationals and a U.S.-based doctor among those arrested in connection with the assassination of Haiti's president last week. Authorities claim the doctor recruited the Colombians to carry out that assassination so he could take over the government.
The assassination has left Haiti in a state of unrest, and the prime minister here has been urging people to stay calm, and he's also implored the U.S. government to send troops here. But President Biden so far has not committed to that. Instead, he's speaking out, saying that the people of Haiti deserve peace and security.
ABC's Marcus Moore in Port-au-Prince. 2 more police officers are recovering after they were shot attempting to arrest a homicide suspect.
Detectives found the car and the suspect in a mall parking lot. As they walked up to the car, the suspect got out and began firing. 2 officers were struck and are in stable condition at the hospital. Both will survive their injuries.
What we saw today was exactly what officers go through. These are the most dangerous situations imaginable.
Officers fired back and killed the suspect. Phil Yakubuski, ABC News, Baltimore.
The FAA giving the okay to Blue Origin, the company owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, to launch humans into space. Bezos will blast off next Tuesday with his brother and 82-year-old Wally Funk. She trained to be an astronaut but never went into space. An unidentified person who paid $28 million will also be on board. This is ABC News.
On our first date, we had masks on and kept 6 feet apart. Now we're a lot closer.
Just like Cliff and Deb, thousands of singles over 50 found their perfect match on Silver Singles last year.
I feel like I'm 20 years old again, and I'm pretty sure she feels the same way.
Rediscover the magic of dating with Silver Singles, the exclusive community for singles over 50. Sign up today and receive daily matches you won't want to miss at silversingles.com/radio. silversingles.com/radio.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Hey, all you high school students and recent grads. How would you like to be a part of the largest digital yearbook ever? All you have to do is head to xqyearbook.com and upload your photo and a quote. And get this, for every valid submission, XQ Institute will be donating $2 in support of student mental health. This is your photo, your story, and your impact. Visit xqyearbook.com and leave your mark. We can't wait to see your submissions.
A Neighbor's Choice is back, and I'm your host, David Gronowski. So glad to be live with you for another hour of our broadcast. We're coming to you on FM, on AM, podcast platforms, and video stream. Somebody was saying, man, I can't ever hardly find a show on YouTube. They hate this show because this show is going to be their worst nightmare for groupthink. They feed off of groupthink, parasitical, vampiric groupthink, holding people back, holding people away from the truth, holding people from science, holding them away from nonviolence, creativity, beauty, all the things that make for great culture. We are a Renaissance program for people who like Renaissance values of art and intervention, discovery, hope, creativity. Those are the things that make life exciting, right? The problem is we've got too many Luddites in D.C. and Silicon Valley and New York media who are not interested in thinking. They've got a lot of mental problems. They got a lot of misery, got a lot of hate in their heart, and they want to share all that toxic sludge onto everybody else. We just don't have time for that, do we? We've got things to get done. We've got diseases to cure. We've got mountains to climb, right? We've got health transformations to make in our lives and those around us. You got to get rid of these toxic seed oils, for one, that governments have continually told you got to gobble up. Get rid of these disgusting garbage information that they keep telling you to eat seed oils. Though, trust me, they'll censor that too if they're not already doing it. They already do it, probably. They censor anything that's beautiful and good. If you say love your neighbor, they censor that. YouTube doesn't want you to love your neighbor. We had to bring our troops home.us tried to they tried to run an ad celebrating the anti-war movement that was launched by General Smedley Butler, and it was a bipartisan event, totally censored when they try to run an ad on YouTube. These people hate love. They hate peace. I don't know why, but they're just shrouded in darkness. They're just completely mesmerized by hate. That's a sick place to be. We can't let those people rule our narratives. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now. The BuzzFeed News, which typically is, useless, but I guess they can report some facts sometimes. The FBI allegedly used at least 12 informants in the Michigan kidnapping case. Remember that story? Where they were going to kidnap the governor of Michigan, and then the guy who was supposed to be the genius architect of the whole plot was a guy living in the basement of a vacuum cleaner store. He was basically almost homeless. That was the genius architect. And they were going to storm the Michigan Capitol, and I guess the FBI guy who was running that whole investigation for that thing now was then transferred over to D.C. before the January 6th thing, and he was in charge of handling that whole deal. 6 defendants, 12 informants. Sounds legit, says David Ribboy. So they had 6 defendants, and they had 12 informants, in the Michigan kidnapping case. And just like we're hearing out of Haiti, they said the people who are being accused of going after the assassinating the president of Haiti, they're saying that they were put in there by DEA and FBI informants. So why are these informants? What about the Boston Marathon, right? A long history there, the FBI, right? How about the Pulse nightclub? We got a lot of listeners from the Orlando region because of our long time with WFLA Orlando, FMAM. And the Pulse nightclub was a horrible event. And there was supposed to be, FBI had been knowing about this guy for a long time. How come they don't, how come they know all these people, but they don't ever stop anything? Whatever happened to that Vegas shooting? What was that all about? How come we don't have that the anniversary, remember the anniversary of the Vegas shooting on all the major media? How come we're not allowed to look into what happened with that? It's so many stupid narratives there that just insult the intelligence when you look at them and just say, what the heck? Another stupid narrative is the idea that kids need to continually use all these idiotic, anti-science, Luddite solutions for COVID. That's what I hate about the garbage corporate communist left, is that they have such a hatred for children. They just hate, everything they do is designed to just create misery and hell that hurts the vulnerable and young the most. California is saying that everybody's going to have to wear a mask if you go to their garbage school system. Get out of their garbage school system. If you're in California, get your kids out of that garbage school system. You don't put masks on kids, and especially after this long of a period. We all know. We knew it from the beginning, but now it's all the dumb people know it now that you don't put masks on kids. The slow learners or whatever, people that watch TV for facts. But they're still pushing that stuff. These stupid people are still pushing this stuff on kids. Even look at this NewYorkMag.com. The kids are all right. Why now is the time to rethink COVID safety protocols for children and everyone else? The kids are safe. They always have been. It may sound strange given a year of panic over school closures and reopenings, a year of masking toddlers and closing playgrounds and huddling in pandemic pods, that according to the CDC, among children, the mortality risk for COVID-19 is actually lower than from the flu. The risk of severe disease or hospitalization is about the same. This is true for the much worried over Delta variant. It is also true for all the other variants and for the original strain. Most remarkably, it has been known to be true since the very earliest days of the pandemic. Indeed, it was among the very first things we did know about the disease. The preliminary mortality data from China was very clear. To children, COVID-19 represented only a vanishingly tiny threat of death, hospitalization, or severe disease. Yet for a year and a half, we have been largely unwilling to fully believe it. Children now wear masks at Little League games, stupid, and at the swimming pool, very dumb. And when school reopens in the fall, they will likely wear masks there too. They should not. But the kids are not at risk themselves and never were. Now, thanks to vaccines, the vast majority of their parents and grandparents aren't any longer either. So even the slow, low info media outlets are saying this. But these stupid groups like New York, what's he going to do? They're going to New York City. Here's a New York Post. De Blasio will force kids to wear masks in schools despite their God CDC telling them you don't got to. You don't have to. So Mayor de Blasio, this weirdo, he says that on Monday, despite the CDC's latest guidelines that vaccinated kids and teachers can go mask-free, for now we're sticking with the idea that wearing the mask is a smart thing to do in schools. It's a very stupid thing to do. It's a very stupid, idiotic thing to do that to kids. These people don't know what it does to mess up their breathing, don't know what it does to mess up their sense of self, their ability to have hope and joy, traumatizing children at a young age. And these dumb Luddites have no concern. Where's de Blasio going to be when these kids are adults? See, he's not going to be around. He's just a stupid, dumb, idiot, Luddite, fascist pig who wants to harm little kids at the earliest stages of their life and then act like he knows what he's talking about. He didn't know anything about science. This guy's a stupid person. This was a dumb fool. Is this who has the same dumb idiot that we saw at the conference shoving French fries in his mouth, cooked in oxidized, rancid vegetable oils that are reheated? They have the highest carcinogenic type thing you could eat. It's like smoking a pack of cigarettes, and he's saying everybody you'll get rewarded free burgers and fries when you get your vaccine. This is a very stupid clown, a very dumb bigot that's causing tremendous amounts of harm. These stupid people put all these, Cuomo was putting all these COVID people into nursing homes. They still, to this day, these liars, these buffoons, these little subservient serfs for big pharma that are these politicians, they still won't even have the audacity to tell you to take vitamin D. They still won't tell you to take vitamin D or get out and get some sun. They still can't do it. They're that pathetically owned by big pharma. Vitamin D is God made it. Your body makes it. Therefore, these dumb clowns predictably will never tell you anything good about doing it from their press conferences. CDC, FDA, Cuomo, they're all the same. Losers, bought and paid for, low quality minds, low quality, no ethics, zero ethics. Pathetic. Because how many people, remember they lied and they were trying to, they would say, oh, we don't really know about vitamin D. No, it's an essential part of your immune system fighting these types of things off. But they couldn't have the dignity to even tell you that. They're that pathetically owned. And remember, these had the audacity to try to start up more racial tensions by saying that racism was why COVID was harming African Americans more. When instead they could have told them that it's a vitamin D issue. That's just science. But see, they hate science. These people are promoting such degradation of society, these politicians, that science is now a problem when it comes to facts. So if you talk about math is a problem. They want to get rid of mathematics. And they want to get rid of anything that's science. Physics is a problem. And so when you're creating a Luddite, dumb, dark age, idiot, troglodyte approach to reality to get your political power maintained, there is no bottom to how low they'll go. So they come up with a fake boogeyman. Oh, it's white supremacy that allowed black people to die of COVID. And it's like, no, you dumb idiots. It's you stupid bigots who told everybody, including black people, to eat lots and lots of seed oils, vegetable oils, which are ubiquitous in all kinds of foods. And if you're not a rich bigot punk like de Blasio, you eat regular food at restaurants, regular cheaper foods at grocery stores, which are loaded with the vegetable oils. So they're the ones that cause people to die from COVID unnecessarily. They're the ones that set people up for miserable deaths by not telling them to get out and get some vitamin D, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, and get rid of the seed oils. That could have saved hundreds of thousands of people's lives. Those deaths are on their hands, people like that. They're over there shoving French fries in their face saying, yeah, we're going to keep putting masks on toddlers, even though there's no reason whatsoever to do that. And there's every reason to not do that because it could harm kids. These soulless bigots are going to push these kids into an experimental product that they don't need. I mean, it's just infuriating that these people are not at 0% in the polls. Not that anybody cares about the polls, but there's got to be some measure of people having some brains and some dignity to push back against it. Can everybody in New York City be that stupid to support these kind of people that are harming their kids? Are they that dumb? Have they not had how long now to do the facts? I know that Google's rigged, but even a young kid can figure out how to get around Google censorship and Twitter and Facebook and figure out facts and read the scientific data. It's all there. It's total nonsense. And I can't believe New York City is just a city full of children. It's not children. That's an insult to children. Children are smarter than these dumb New Yorkers. These people are just bigot fools. What do they do with their life? Putting masks on toddlers. What stupid people. It just infuriates me. And I know it infuriates you. But that's why we got to talk about this in the public square, and shame on these people. Shame on these disgusting people, these sellouts who've harmed hundreds of thousands of people by misinforming them about things they could have done for COVID. Generic drugs and natural supplements. What's the number one common denominator for those things? They don't have patents. Back in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Neighbor's Choice returns. We're live on radio, podcast, video stream. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040 to call in and engage with some of the things we're talking about. We're going to hear from Peter Quinones soon, who is the host of the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast. Let's look at some of your comments. Brandon Howell says, when I see Pete and Dave are talking, I have to click. Welcome, Brandon. Thanks for joining us. Joseph says the swamp was bigger and deeper than anyone ever imagined. That's true. UKH1 says, new to this channel. Hi, welcome to the program. He says, you guys see the 50 Texas Democrats who have been threatened with arrest for leaving to go to D.C., and they're over there trying to make a little spectacle. And what are they making a spectacle? That's what I can't stand. This is what victimism is. That's what Rene Girard says, the anthropologist that I quote from in reference, because he has so much explanatory power for the headlines of our times. Talks about victimism, which is pretending to concern yourself with victims as a means of grabbing power and control and authoritarian, aggression and violence. And Texas, I don't know the particulars of this bill, but in general, what we see across the board is that the Democrats are making this play that they want the most dubious, third world style, dictator style, garbage elections where you have universal mail-in ballots, no ability to look at signatures, just a total scam job. And then they hide behind victimism by saying, oh, well, we're the new civil rights. No, that's not what civil rights was about. Okay? But they have to try to create a victim narrative so they can hide behind it so that they can push their wicked stuff to hurt people so that nobody has any real accountability in their elections at all. Aldua says, yep, things are getting stranger each week. Another commenter, Jinkaza, says, the story of the winking Cossack is one I keep in mind. The Cossacks joined the Soviets at the beginning of the Russian Revolution. If the military is with the rebels, it never bodes well. Another commenter says, what I am having to mentally reconcile is that 90% of news is 180 degrees from the truth. Best example, quote, most secure election ever. Gokada says, same here. It's really hard to deal with all of this. Surat says, didn't the Cossacks get betrayed after the revolution? And just looking at different comments here. Luca asked about, did people see what Macron called for in France? Yeah, he called for more little health passports. They've been pushing these little narratives. They coordinate stuff so transparently. I cannot imagine people can't have any IQ or something to be able to process the fact that this is garbage. They prep these things. Oh, you're going to have your boosters forever, every day, every little booster to get you. And then it's going to be connected to a passport. And they tell you they're going to do a passport. And then they do it. And then it's just insane. Remember when they used to say that the New World Order was a conspiracy theory? Now it's so transparently obvious that there's all this global coordination of narratives and policies. Everybody's got to have a health passport. Everybody's got to have a Build Back Better. Everybody's got to have fake green energy scams. Everybody's got to have lockdowns in perpetuity. Everybody's got to have the same, divisive, tribalistic goop mentality where you're just an amorphous blob who is supposed to pick a tribal team. And it's like, that sounds like prison. That's prison. That's what they do in prison. They give you garbage nutrition. That's what Build Back Better means to these people. It means garbage nutrition. It means total surveillance. It means total control over your travel, total control of your thought. And what you have to do is pick a team of tribalism. That's what prison is. You got this racial tribe, this racial tribe. You pick a team to survive. That's how hellish prison is. They want to extend that to the whole world. Who the hell wants this? It's so transparently ridiculous. I can't believe people want that. I don't think most people don't. I think the vast majority of people don't. They may not understand the facts and ethics and so forth, but they intuitively know you don't want this crap. Macron, this loser. Who is this guy? Another comment, I'm halfway expecting to wake up some morning soon and read the headline, scientists agree water is not wet. Yeah, they'll say anything. If Fauci came out and said water is not wet, millions of people, if he said water was white supremacist, they wouldn't drink it. Millions of people, apparently. And it's sad that people have lost their minds collectively. We're in a mania. This is a religious mania. And the number one thing we need to do right now is study how to help people get out of cult programming, because that's what people are in right now. It's a cultist devotion to state experts that's failing their reality. Back in just a moment with Peter Quinones.
Folks, we were sold a been there,
Weekdays noon to 2.
done that presidency.
It's Fox Across America.
Who will be ready on day one.
With Jimmy Fallon.
It was a big lie. Listen to Biden here.
120 days. Give me a break.
Understand that Trump says that. Oh, Trump admits he's not ready. Here we are at day 146 because they would also fact check the fact that he got the dates wrong.
It's Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon. Weekdays noon to 2. News Talk 1040 WHPO.
President Biden blasting attempts to overturn the November election.
America, if you lose, you accept the results. You follow the Constitution. You try again. You don't call facts fake.
The president speaking in Philadelphia says he'll fight to protect the right to vote. Texas House Democrats are in Washington, D.C., where they refuse to vote on a series of election reforms in their home state.
Make no mistake, this is not about one particular bill. This is political theater by and for Texas Democrats.
State House GOP leader Jim Murphy. 5 members of the same Texas family are under arrest for allegedly taking part in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. An ABC News analysis finds over the past week, states with less than 50% of their total population vaccinated against COVID-19 are reporting cases 3 times higher than those with more than half of their population.
I'm not going to play that garbage ABC News stuff. That's an insult to human dignity. We'll just wait for this trash to end. That's much better, isn't it, folks? That's much, much better to shut that stupid ABC News report off. Couldn't do that for you, my friends in Radio Land, but I could for my video stream audience. I couldn't hear that garbage anymore. There's stupid, stupid people always pushing fear. ABC. Garbage media outlet that is. I just had to shut those guys off. I can't take hearing that garbage. Oh, the Delta variant's gonna get you. Delta variant. What the? Check the hell off. Go watch your stupid TV programming somewhere else. This is radio. Whatever to happen to humanity anymore. You got these stupid TV robots, and they're invading our radio world too. Peter Quinones, could you imagine that? That we're living with these robots telling us, the Delta variant gonna get you if you don't give the... What is this stupid trash? I mean, can you imagine that people are this low info to believe this stuff, Peter?
Honestly, I was listening to that and I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, what am I getting hit with propaganda as soon as I get on the phone with David? How you doing, David?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How you doing? Sorry about that. I can't.
Well, I don't know if I have the Delta variant, but I definitely do have the coronavirus.
Yeah. What about the Spirit Airline variant? What the hell is that like? Goodness gracious. That'll mess you up for days. Well, the thing is, the problem with this stuff is that they just don't stop. That was like a campaign PR persuasion in 2 minutes, a little ABC News break. And they say, Biden's going to protect any attack against our elections. What is this? Like, who is writing this? Think about, where did this lady get her script? So she's just reading this thing. Where did she get that script? It's just a complete DNC or whatever. It's not DNC. Some kind of establishment
college
hack.
Professors.
Is it college?
It's probably college professors.
Really?
I think college professors write that for them. I think that, Curtis Yarvin's concept of a cathedral, where the academia comes up with an idea and just feeds it to the press, and then the press just parrots it and puts it out there and changes the culture, and then the culture, when the culture changes on the ground, changes politics, and then you have a country of scared little children. I mean, I'm serious. I've had the coronavirus for 16 days now, but I haven't once thought I was going to die. And I'm older and I'm overweight, and it's been tough, and I've been weak a lot and everything, but I'm getting through it, and I know that I'm getting better every day. So it's just, as far as I'm concerned, I got the flu, and it lasted about 2 weeks.
And which variant did you get? Did you get American Airlines? What did you get?
I have no idea. Well, apparently it might be called the Pork Fest variant, because apparently I may have gotten it in New Hampshire at Pork Fest. So some of us are calling it the Pork Fest variant.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. So what are your symptoms? What are you having?
Well, it all started off with like muscle pain, and then just weakness, and then after about a week, just tired. I mean, like, don't want to get out of bed, kind of tired. Probably I had two days of having trouble breathing. I took 5 days of a no cure that they don't want to talk about. And after I took the 5 days of the no cure, my lungs were fine after that and everything. And at this point, I'm just getting over some like minor symptoms, just tired, just basically trying to get my energy back. So went to the mall today, did some walking around and everything, and got a 20-minute massage, and feeling much better today. Although I wanted to make it through today without taking a nap or laying down even for 5 minutes. But before I got on this call, I did lay down for about 20 minutes just to relax and catch my get some strength.
Well, you're still going to need to get all the doses of all the approved drugs. You know that, right? So, and I think that people are I think ABC and NBC and CBS are anti-vax unless they promote that you need to get all of the shots. You need to get J&J, Moderna, and Pfizer. And if you don't get all three, you're anti-vax. That's my standard I'm challenging them to accept. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time believing that the average American is hearing that, where they're saying, well, we may need to pile them on top of each other and not just see this as a money grab. I mean, I last week I saw a story where they were talking about, oh, you might have to get your pets vaccinated and everything. And I'm like, I mean, they're pushing too far.
But
they're going too far.
But how come when they had Happy Days when the guy jumped the shark, right? And people knew they were jumping the shark when they said this show's over. How come those same folks, or maybe they're not the same folks, maybe America's degraded that bad, but how come the same population can't say, wait a second, they've jumped the shark? How come they don't have that discernment now? Or maybe they do, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was a kid when that happened, and I remember it. And I think education was a little different back then. I don't remember, even though I was going to public school at the time, I don't remember race being brought up 24/7 and things like that. It wasn't the greatest education in the world, but it was social studies and things that, you were supposed to learn, and not an indoctrination of sorts that I really didn't think I'd see in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's a wild moment that we're in. And so many narratives are so fragile and so pathetically stupid, and they're all happening at the same time. It really feels like an attack against people's sense of sanity, and I think what we're going through, Peter, perhaps is a mania, that there's millions of a mass mania taking place that are really buying into. They believe that their government was Mickey Mouse. They really believed it. And that's on the folks on the right and a lot of folks on the left. And they believed that it was just this little sweet little Mickey Mouse thing. And that it would correct all the problems of the past and bigoted prejudice of the past, and all this little Mickey Mouse stuff would happen. And then when you start to see that everything doesn't make sense, I think people have a mental break from reality where they just double down into this kind of hallucinatory moment where they're still living in that. Well, that movie, there was that show, WandaVision, where they have the story is there's a character that has trauma, and she doesn't want to face the trauma, so she creates this fantasy world of a TV sitcom where she's living in, and everything is manufactured, but it's all based on violence and hidden aggression. That feels like what millions of people are going through right now, who are still buying into this stupid, transparently idiotic propaganda from the media.
Well, and you have to remember, too, starting in February and March of last year, it wasn't only the coronavirus and everybody's going to die, and look to the person next to you, look to the person to the right of you, to the left of you. One of those people won't be with us in 6 months. It was also a concentrated, violent revolution in the streets last year that people seem to have forgotten about, and then culminating in a election that the more people start to look into it, and I'm talking about serious people like law professors and people that I've been listening to lately, they're like, wait a minute, this election was completely phony.
Who do you who have you listened to that said that? Do you have any names or professors?
Oh yeah, I can look it up I can look them up real quick.
Well, just wait. Yeah, we'll take a break in a little bit, and you can look it up on the break. But go ahead with what you were saying.
Yeah, so you have all these things falling in on you, and there are still a lot of people out there who are thinking rationally, and I think that most people who are thinking rationally just are very scared to come forward and say anything because they're scared to lose their job, they're scared to lose their status, they don't know. I mean, I haven't been in a church in a long time, but I can imagine that a lot of churches bought into this as well, so you just don't want to say anything. And then once you're holding all this stuff in, it's going to affect your health. It's going to affect your physical health, your mental health, and a lot of people have to be looking at where we're at right now and thinking that is this the end? Are we at a turning where some of us aren't going to make it? And honestly, it's a good question to ask at this point is, should you be buying a cabin in the woods or something like that to get away from everything? Because, I live in a city right now that I'm getting ready to move, and I'm never coming back. I'm never going close to living in a city ever again.
Yeah. And yet the cities just, they have this possession of stupid groupthink. I mean, like I was mentioning, de Blasio will force the kids to wear masks in schools in New York City. I mean, there's zero science. You would think, like, if you're an effective propagandist, you would give a little bit, right? That's a good way to kind of keep, like, hey, look, I'm giving you gifts and freebies. No, they're doubling down on something that I just can't imagine millions of people in New York going along with putting their kids with these masks, these toddlers. They can't breathe well, when you put these stupid things. They have zero efficacy by any of the scientific standards. The N95 is the only thing that does anything to reduce, and they're not putting that on kids. Kids wouldn't even wear them properly anyways. It's such a stupid joke. Why do they double down? Why don't they give a little give to make it more of an attractive authoritarianism? That's the way I thought they're supposed to sell you. Like, you give a little, or maybe not. Maybe I need to read Machiavelli, or who's a good reference point to understand these people, Peter?
Well, I mean, Machiavelli would be a great reference point, or Sun Tzu, Art of War. And you just don't go for it all at once. And they just, I guess when everything started with the lockdowns, and they saw that people bought into it hook, line, and sinker, they're like, okay, let's see what else we can get away with. And I mean, it got to the point where I think they were just saying the most ridiculous things to see what would happen. I remember, being with someone who lives right outside of Atlanta, and someone who worked inside of Atlanta at the time. The day after Fauci said maybe wearing 2 masks is an important thing, I saw people walking down the street, literally walking down the street in the open air, wearing 2 masks that I had never seen before. I had never seen 2 masks before that. And it's frustrating, and it's demoralizing. You're just looking around, and you're just like, how are people just buying into this so easily?
Was that the day you lost your faith in libertarianism, when you saw those 2 maskers show up right on cue?
Oh no, I lost my faith in libertarianism. That was slipping quickly before I even heard the term COVID-19. But it slowly, very quickly when COVID-19 hit and I saw how people reacted to it, I was very much in the camp of, okay, we we have to rethink some things, because people do not desire, they don't desire freedom, liberty. They desire theater and supposed safety. And as soon as I saw that, it was like, okay, maybe I need to be taking care of myself first and worry about other people after I have my own life in order and some semblance of clearing myself away from this absolute insanity.
Joseph Whittle online asks, he says, I suspect that vaccine enforcement will cause a flashpoint. Do you think that will be a tipping point for people to say, I've had enough, if they start forcing this, especially on the kids? That's where I think it's going to be very, very problematic.
I hope. I mean, we hope, but up until this point, people I didn't think that, masks were going to be adopted so easily. I didn't think that the whole idea of, because, I was saying right away last year, I think in February, I had podcasted and said, this is going to be about vaccines. And I don't know. I have really no faith. I don't have a lot of faith in people, especially near cities. I mean, the more urban you get, I think the more kind of resistance you'll see. But who knows at this point? People have just rolled over, and it's something to watch. As if you just look at it from an anthropological standpoint, it's very interesting. Where you're just like, this is the weirdest thing. But then you remember, wait a minute, I live with these people, and this isn't good.
What do you think it would take to get this urban white liberal mind that of what city you're in to change their opinion on the whole complex of nonsense, or at least most of it?
It would have to be a complete paradigm shift in I think the media. I think the white liberal city dweller is whatever is being said on the media in the evening. That is their gospel. That is their gospel. And I think it would take, you'd have to see a radical change in the message, and that's just not going to happen.
Is there something that these old media outlets could do? I call them the 20th century media. Is there something they could do or say or display that might trigger these white liberal minds, I call them the TV party, to start losing their faith?
At this point, I don't see what it would be. Maybe a hard shift to the right. Something that would go against their sacraments. Like abortion, or a questioning of abortion, or here's one that may cause a shift. If the corporate media got it in their mind that if it pierced the Overton window, that secession is probably a good idea, I think they would start questioning the message coming from the media. I think that would be one thing where they'd be like, wait a minute, we've lost control here. What's going on?
You're saying if the corporate media was saying secession is a good idea? Yeah. I would have that. That'd be a very rare thing to see. But I guess they were kind of floating that under Trump.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think the only way that it would, I don't know that it could work under a right-wing populist president without just complete the kind of attack that Trump had, where just every sector of the cathedral went after him. I think it would have to be under a left kind of president, and somebody who checks off the boxes for progressivism.
We're speaking with Peter Quinones of the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast. We'll take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Or Send us a comment on the live stream video wherever you can find it. And remember, you can always catch our content on aneighborschoice.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and you'll get all of our content or highlights from each week sent to you directly. Stay with us, more to come live.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Updated death certificates require choosing between COVID, climate change, or systemic racism as cause of death. That's a headline at Babylon Bee. And I'm joined now with Peter Quinones. So, Peter, when we look at this story, I just think it's interesting. My focus, I think, from a, strategy standpoint is we've got to be able to engage those who seem to be persuaded by the TV, the dying 20th century media. I think we need to study, people who specialize in helping people help their family members get out of, again, a cult. When you get into a cult, they tell you you can't have glasses, you can't have red shirts, you can't do this, and then they fall into that, and they will fall into it for the longest time. And just like any cult, the TV party, they have things that sound good. You listen to any cult leader, and they say, "Look, change your life. You can challenge any group think, you can do this." And they all say the same stuff, but there's always a twist that's really twisted. There's always a little bit of an antisocial twist that just kind of skews it all. And in this case, this isn't even really that good cult programming. It's just so big, and it's got so much money behind it and so much inertia behind it that it's affecting millions of people's lives. And we've got to find a way to be able to get them unclogged, to have their mind unclogged from it. One of the things that would help is, of course, in my opinion, reduce the consumption of vegetable oils, which are linked to mental issues. In scientific literature, omega-6 seed oils, high amounts of sugar. Chris Palmer, a Harvard psychiatrist, is curing people of depression and schizophrenia and bipolar by getting them into therapeutic ketosis. So there's different dietary changes that could be made that could help a poor little liberal mind look at things and say, wait a second, I've been eating steaks now for 2 weeks, and now CNN is just garbage. You know what I mean? So maybe that's a help. I don't know. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I mean, that is something that I don't know the likelihood that that's going to happen overnight. I think about, when you talk about cult programming, I think of a gentleman named Daryl. I believe his name is Daryl Davis, and he's a black gentleman, blues musician, who has befriended over 200 members of the KKK. And just by befriending them, he has gotten them to quit. And I think that may be it, is, it in your personal life. If you're working somewhere, just befriend somebody like that, somebody who's in that cult, and show them the kind of love that they're not used to. If you're religious, show them the love of Christ, show them the love of whatever, and maybe that makes a change in their life. Just inviting them to a meal or something like that. That makes a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, we've got to be able to find a way to outflank it, scratch the itch for justice that people have in their hearts better than what the TV programming is offering for justice and so forth, right? And that's the thing we've got to focus on. And yeah, Daryl Davis is one of the first people I interviewed in my podcast before the radio show, and he's an example of what we need to all be thinking and doing, is that you go up to people, and if Daryl Davis, as an African-American blues musician, can stand in the face of KKK veterans of that movement, of that ideology, and he can face them down without fear and persuade them through love, then that's what we should be doing, right? That's how we have to think if we're going to have any chance of a renaissance in this society.
Well, it's definitely an example of how it could be done, one person at a time. I just don't see, this isn't going to happen overnight, and this is probably going to be a generation or two, but the work needs to start now. It's very hard to look, especially the last 20 years since 9/11, and have any hope for people who truly love liberty, and for them to see a light at the end of the tunnel. But if not, it has to start now. I mean, if not, when? And if we wait too long, what could happen? Something cataclysmic. I mean, this government, and I won't even say the government, but even the press, is so intent on starting wars, and if it isn't Russia, it's China. If it isn't China, it's somebody else, and it's Venezuela, it's Cuba this week. And we have to start trying to turn people, and that may, at this point, we just may be at that point where it's individual to individual, and still work on your social media presence and work on alternative outlets of putting information out there, and just chip away at the stone, basically, to see if we can come up with a good statue to go forward, something that we can look at, that we can call a success at some point.
Yeah, I think it is going to have to be taking time, large amount, like really downsizing our interaction with social media as a primary means of communication. It needs to be a smaller part of our lives, probably to some degree or another. Aaron comments, Pete is correct. Sweden's shift from socialism to democratic capitalism in the 90s was spearheaded by the Social Democrats, not the conservatives. I expect a similar phenomenon in modern America. Well, Peter, we're out of time. I appreciate you coming on, and I want people to check out your podcast, Free Man Beyond the Wall, which is on all platforms, right, including YouTube.
Yes, David, yes.
Thanks again for joining me, Peter.
David.
And that's it for A Neighbor's Choice, folks. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.